Alrighty, welcome in everybody to TYT Sports. That's a lot of us, and that's exactly what you should get.
You can't get too much of it.
Absolutely not. That's J.R. Jackson. I'm Rick Strom. Now, look, I saw yesterday with this tweet that LeVar Ball tweeted that BBB is going to Lithuania, and they're giving up the Ferraris and Rolls Royces and Sweet 16s, and they're going to a place that probably doesn't have them in Lithuania. And they're playing for a club named Prienų Vytautas. So then I saw this tweet from former Wisconsin Badger great, and as a Hoosier who honestly I hated in college, Ben Brust. He tweeted, "The balls to Lithuania is a disaster waiting to happen." And he says that I played there for a year, hated it. This is a picture of the team's gym that the Ball brothers would play at. Not exactly big baller material. Oh snap. So then what did I do? I reached out to the very man, former Wisconsin Badger great Ben Brust, and we are joined by him now on the very platform of TYT Sports. Hello, Ben, how are you?
What's going on, guys?
What's going on, Ben? Really fast, JR right here first. Why are you hating on the balls? Is the first question I'm sure you got on Twitter, right?
So now I'm pegged as a hater, which, you know, to be completely honest, I watch The Ball and the Family every Sunday. I can't wait for it. I can't get enough of it. No, I know it's either you're on the love or the hate side, right. And I'm kind of somewhere in the middle because I don't know what to think about them going to Lithuania, other than it's going to create amazing television.
Right. So if they do, of course, because I don't know what the deal is exactly with Facebook on if they're allowed to post this or what have you. I didn't really get into the particulars, but more importantly, I wanted to know from somebody who played in this exact league, what the hell these kids are getting into. Because they get pulled from UCLA, they get pulled from high school, they're 19 and 16 respectively. I've seen contrasting reports from a media member in Lithuania and a media member in ESPN that were saying, oh, they're in dire financial straits, and the team can't even practice because of the finances, and the league, they're gonna get the piss beaten out of them. Like, Ben, what exactly should they be not looking forward to, but what should they, if you were talking to them, be their expectations?
So that's why it's bizarre to me, because I thought LeVar's done a good job, you know, trying to get his master plan to come together, but to choose Lithuania of all places, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. Going from sunny Southern California to Lithuania, where the sun virtually goes down at like 2 p.m. You pretty much get up, go to your midday practice, you come back, and the sun's down, and you're like, what happened? So it's a huge shock from a weather perspective. It's dark all the time, it's cloudy, feels like it rains every day. It's just bizarre to me. And then if you look up, you know, their coach doesn't speak English. I had a friend, Billy Barron, who played for this coach at the capital city, which is much nicer than the 10,000 people village they'll be at. And he was miserable because the coach couldn't communicate with him. And the coach said to an assistant coach to tell to the Americans that he probably won't play them that much because he can't communicate with them. And then you look at the financial situation. They're paying $500 to $2,000 a month when they have the money, and they don't have the money. So the whole thing just doesn't make sense. How do you spin zone this as to Ferraris and money, and we're all about big baller things, you know, as LeVar shouts, to going to a remote country where the whole country is 2.7 million people, and the city of Los Angeles is like 2 times that. I don't know. I'm trying to like find how this makes sense, and I just can't.
Okay, so this is always the questions that I think would come. So these two brothers, one's 19 and one is 16.
Yes.
Leaving college and high school respectively. Obviously, you know which ones is which. How old were you when you played there, number one? And then we always talk about culture shock when it comes to Americans that play in other countries and how they feel and how they want to get some sense of home. So first off, how old were you when you played? And also imagine yourself going and play at the ages that they are and how much different it'd be for you.
So this was my first year out of college, and I mean, it was quite a drop from going Final Four, chartered flights at Milwaukee Bucks Summer League to bussing around Lithuania and having to drive with my 2 American teammates 40 minutes away just to get some sense of American culture and get some food that tasted American. You know, I'm watching Ball and the Family. Lonzo's eating a steak plain with a salad with lettuce, cheese, and ranch. They don't have ranch in Lithuania. They better pack up as much Hidden Valley Ranch as they can find, or as much food as mac and cheese, you name it, whatever they like, they better bring it, because it's going to be a shock. I can't even imagine as a 16-year-old going to do this. Yeah. Hopefully he's got his entourage ready to take care of him, because it's going to be a shock. And then if you think about a 16-year-old playing in a league where they are professionals, these are grown men. He's 16 years old. He's got braces on. I played against guys in that league with gray hair. You know, it's going to be quite interesting to see. I actually fear for him potentially getting hurt, not because they're trying to hurt him, but because he's just physically not where these grown men are in their lives.
So there's a few things that I noticed, Ben, that you pointed to. The first was with the finances. Something that this team is trying to do is they're going to American sponsors and saying, pay us 50,000 euros. I was going to say dollars. Pay us 50,000 euros in order to help the finances of the team and also become a sponsor for whatever the hell is going to happen with LiAngelo and LaMelo. Secondly, my question to you is, we have heard the prototypical ways and the verbiage of being like, hey, if somebody from America goes over there, they're not going to be ready because the fans are intense. I think Dan Le Batard even said that one player told him that fans would heat up quarters and throw them at opposing teams as players. So like, could any violence happen because of how Lithuania is granted becoming, it appears that we lost the connection. Okay, so just allow me to finish the question here and then we'll continue on because we're still streaming. So when Le Batard said that, I immediately turned to, well, I remember, who was it? Emmanuel Mudiay, who played in China. And he said that a lot of the players that were there, they would smoke during halftime. They would smoke cigarettes, not marijuana, in the bathroom. Fans were allowed to smoke in arenas. I remember, to Ben's point about playing time, Brandon Jennings, when he was in the Italian league, said that, and I looked up his stats in Europe. In the Italian league, he took 6 shots per game and he averaged 6 points per game. This is a guy who, when he was in his prime, put up about 17 or 18 points a game. So it seems like there's going to be culture shock. I just would like to know if there's going to be this fear for these American players to go over somewhere where there's literal culture shock, and the fans are going to be so intense that it's going to be a hard adjustment for them to overcome.
Well, yeah, all these things are real, but actually one of the things about their representation, the two brothers' representation, was they wanted to negotiate a team, because I think Ben also mentioned with playing time, because of maybe language barriers, so that this particular coach doesn't speak much English at all. So in that case, he won't play them much. But they pointed out, hey, this could be okay because we decided to negotiate. Yeah, we decided to negotiate playing time as well as the contract situation. So he has to play them a certain amount.
Right.
But all this is, it's hard for all that, for everything to be catered towards a couple of teenagers when, again, as was been pointed out, there's grown ass men on this team.
Right.
They're there doing their job. And they think these two youngsters are going to come in and change everything that happens.
So how would you feel if someone like, I don't want to use the term invaded your territory because I don't think it applies. But like, if someone from a different country where their sport is A+ and yours is like a C-, D+, and they come over and think they're going to run shit, what else would you do? You'd be pissed.
And they're basically famous already.
Yes.
So like these Hollywood kids, it's even worse. If they were like a couple kids from Arizona,
small town. Yeah, of course.
Like
it'd be so different because we wouldn't be talking about it if they were from a small town.
So I mean, worldwide, people know Hollywood. Obviously, they'd be like, "Oh, these Hollywood kids," and come over with their sunglasses and think they're gonna take over my team and
with their 700,000 Twitter followers,
not speak my language, and expect to just play and take over because in high school one of them scored 90 points in a game against other children. So that's okay, but I'm not saying he's not great. I read that stat, I was like, oh, that's impressive. He scored 92 points. We hear stories about Reggie Miller and Cheryl Miller in one night scoring 100 points and shit in their high school games. That's amazing, and they both end up being amazing pros. So that's a cool thing, but they're playing against pros now.
Okay, so for everyone watching on the stream, the connection dropped out. We have Ben Bruss once again. So to continue on with what we were discussing, Ben, when I was reading and just telling JR a little bit off camera, the few things that I point to is when Dan Le Batard was saying that opposing fans would heat up quarters and throw them at opposing players. I remember hearing that for Emmanuel Mudiay when he was in China, it was via an SI article where he said that there was clouds of smoke in the arena because fans in China were allowed to smoke. Players even smoked during halftime in the bathroom. So from an opposing fan's perspective, what exactly is in store for the ball kids?
See, that's the thing that I'm interested to see if like the people of Lithuania embrace the Ball family or if they revolt against. I'm guessing there's going to be a lot of excitement. They're probably going to be geared up to go watch. People will drive in to see their first game or maybe go see their biggest away game because they do play in some big stadiums. There's some really good teams. I mean, this is a really good basketball league. This is a country that prides themselves on basketball. A 3 million people country who's finishing, third, fourth in the FIBA games and getting Olympic medals. So there's a lot of passion and pride there. If somehow, some way they screw up, I'm not saying they'll steal, but I don't know, maybe say something bad to the wrong person or look at someone the wrong way. I don't know. It just seems like a messy situation coming off of a international bad PR display that happened in China. You get the wrong person mad. You just don't want to do that. You don't want to put yourself in a situation where people are throwing stuff at you, booing you every time. And then like, what are you going to do? Hide in your apartment in your 10,000 people village? Everyone's going to know where you're at.
Right.
I mean, there's no escaping. So don't mess up. I mean, I would just say do not mess up. You look at those people, it's Eastern Europe. It's got like a post-World War II vibe in some of these remote villages where you smile at them and they kind of stare back like, why are you smiling at me? It's kind of that sort of thing.
Yeah, so I mentioned this also when we lost you for a second. So they said they negotiated playing time. You mentioned the playing time and contracts within so they could get enough of a development. Do you see that flying also with maybe guys that are already playing there, with coaches, as you said, with the language barrier? Does that fly with them where their agent, their representation said, we can get them playing time based off the way we can negotiate that contract?
A contract overseas feels like nothing. Look, they're not paying players. How do you expect them to live up to playing time, especially with a coach that didn't play Americans because he couldn't speak to them?
Right.
I see this going like every sign that everything that we talk about, the fans, whether it's the coach or just how the Ball family is in general, they're just different than the people of Lithuania. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just don't see it meshing well where, if something goes bad, what does LeVar do? He goes to talk to the coach of Chino Hill. He can't go to the coach and talk to him. I mean, the coach will listen to him. He just don't know what he's saying. It's just bizarre.
So to clear up, because again, like I started with, you're going to be seen as a hater. Is there anything behind, because I mean, if I'm just tuning in and watching, I'm a huge fan of the Ball family. I'm gonna go, this guy, Ben Brust, is jealous. He played in Lithuania. He came back here. He's American. He went to play with the Bucks. Didn't play with them for long. So all this. Tell me something. The reason why people won't see you as being just an angry person who's jealous of their potential success.
Ask any player who's played in Lithuania. My two teammates, Alex Oriaki, won a national championship at UConn, still plays overseas. Mike Dixon played at Missouri, transferred to Memphis. He was my teammate. We literally counted down the days. Billy Barron plays in Turkey now. DMing me about, I don't want to say anything that Billy said that's bad.
Sure.
He's still got to make a career overseas. But man, that was the biggest struggle of anyone's life that spent time over there. It's much different than America. Look out, world.
All right, Ben, I got a few more for you. One of the writers in Lithuania tweeted this about all of the falsehoods that the American media is running with, and then we'll let you go. He said they're essentially playing in the minor leagues. Club doesn't practice. All the good Lithuanian basketball players are in the US. This is an awful league. Players make approximately $500. And then he also put to this that, again, these are all wrong. But from your playing days, it seems like a lot of these are accurate, no?
Well, I mean, it's split amongst the league. The top three teams in the league are playing all across Europe. They're what we call Euro League and Euro Cup teams. So they play in the Lithuanian league, and they also play in different countries where they are flying. where you're going to have an experience that's a little bit more pro-like. LaMelo and LiAngelo are playing on a team that is going to bus everywhere. And they're playing in a lot of the playing time that they're going to get sounds like it's going to be in the Baltic League, which is in Latvia, Estonia, sometimes Finland, where they are going to be busing 8 to 10 hours sometimes to play those games. Not exactly the life that they've been living, and it's something that you got to get used to. And again, I was 23 years old, 4 years older than LiAngelo and much older than LaMelo. They're used to having Lamborghinis and flying on planes, and it's going to be interesting. But I'm excited for the show if they can get some good material.
All right, last question for you then, Ben, because I know that you got to get going. And again, I messaged him. This goes to show the character of Ben. Like, I messaged him like, hey, you played there. You want to hop on the show? And he's like, yeah, screw it, I'll do it. so short notice, I appreciate it. Lastly, when we were talking about these are grown men, you played against men with gray hairs. Not that there's anything bad about that. We have a few growing in respectively. But like, when you look at how young they are and how LaMelo is the NBA sort of guy, sort of kid even, and LiAngelo is not. He was just kind of a prospect who was going to go to UCLA and potentially play a few years. Is there anything that you would share with them about the physicality of the league? Like, do you think that some of these guys are going to throw elbows when they go in the paint just to establish that, hey, this is our country. You're not going to try to intervene in anything that we're trying to do here?
Yeah, it's not that they're bad people. They're just prideful, and they're going to have a target on their back just because of, even if they weren't the Ball family and they were just Americans in there, everyone would obviously know that they're Americans or from a different culture. So naturally, there's just going to be an eye on them all the time. And like I said, I don't fear that he's going to get hurt because they're trying to hurt him. Just naturally, like they might foul him hard, and the poor little guy is 16 still. Like, listen, I am not a hater. I am rooting for LaMelo Ball. Like, I was excited to watch him in college basketball. LiAngelo, I was excited to see what he would develop into over time, but obviously with him not getting, first off with what happened in China, and second off, he probably wouldn't have gotten the time that LeVar would have liked. What would have happened there? So there's a lot of storylines that I was looking forward to seeing, and now I just don't know if this helps them grow right now. I don't know if this is the best situation to help them get better to reach LeVar's ultimate goal of having all three on the Lakers. In which many scouts don't have LiAngelo even on G League draft rosters, and LaMelo is still 16 years old. So I just hope for their sake that it doesn't set them back, because I'm not going to root against kids who are just trying to figure out their lives, because we've all been there. We've all been in a spot where we don't know what's going to happen. So I wish them the best. I'm just talking from a grand perspective. This doesn't make a lot of sense.
Alrighty, Ben, look, man, we really, really appreciate it. If people want to check out more of your stuff, where exactly can they find you?
At Ben Brust on Twitter. I do some stuff with ESPN Madison full time, and then the Big Ten Network. I do some studio stuff there. Hit or miss wherever. I'll be around. If there's more ball news in Lithuania, I'll definitely be commenting, and look forward to seeing how this progresses. All
right, awesome, man. Ben, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, guys. Later.
All righty, so look, awesome of him to jump on, firstly, with like a 2-hour window. Secondly, you heard it. It is going to be a very, very, very difficult transition with 10-hour bus rides, really nobody else who speaks English. They're gonna have each other, which is obviously great, but it seems like until we see something, and we are so far away from this actually occurring, we're about a month away, so like 4 weeks away, maybe 3 from this actually going down. I think it was important because look, we can come to our own opinions. We can research the shit out of this league. We can watch 2.5-hour games. What's most important is when you have somebody that played in this exact country, played against the exact team that LaMelo and LiAngelo are playing for, and to get his insight. So Ben Brust, thank you.
Absolutely. No,
open invite.
Because the thing, there's a lot of assumptions we can make, and we do that. Let's keep it real, because that's all we can do in some aspects. I've never been to Lithuania. I've never been near Lithuania. So my assumptions would have to come off of some documentary I've seen, or something about foreign basketball playing with Americans, or even our previous interview before about China. So China's a different fucking country.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
that's all we can pull from. So as people jump on Twitter and have their points and talk about how horrible of a father LeVar is, which I was about to do, I want to know what's happening first, what they've discussed, what they've decided, what he thinks is going to happen. And I'm telling you, that insight that we just got was I think, priceless. You can't get it from anywhere else.
Absolutely. So, by the way, if any media outlet uses it, you better credit us, or we are coming. All right, so let's step aside for like 20 seconds. Let's reset. We'll be back. Everybody on the live stream, we're going to be talking to Antonio Brown and why Carmelo Anthony and the Oklahoma City Thunder absolutely blow. We'll be back. This is what I find to be pretty interesting. As we know, the MVP in the NFL is a quarterback award. Sometimes they're running backs that win. Majority of the time, there are not. Yet Antonio Brown might be, as J.R. Jackson is here, Antonio Brown might be the one case of, that was nice. Hey, so Antonio Brown might be the one case that finally we give it to a wide receiver. Jeremy Fowler wrote on ESPN, a receiver never has won the award, but Brown is on pace for more than 120 catches, 1,800 yards, and his prolific play might sway at least a few voters who are pivoting from the injured, and this is important, Carson Wentz, or if you're German, Carson Wentz. He has a prime stage to help sway them Sunday, 4:25 Eastern. New England Patriots, Heinz Field, and then he continues. Antonio Brown is one catch away from becoming the NFL's first receiver with 5 100-catch seasons. He's nearing 8,000 yards over a 5-year span, which hasn't been done. His 3 seasons with at least 1,500 yards are tied for second all-time behind Jerry Rice's. Before I get into more of the numbers, the single season record for yards, I believe, is 1,964 when Calvin Johnson did it. The one thing that Chris Carter pointed to, I think it was this morning, probably, said that it should be a quarterback award because Calvin Johnson went 4-12 that year. Well, you also got to think about their defense was terrible.
Absolutely.
The quarterback play was awful.
These are team sports. Okay.
And this is all, and I think it's time to emphasize yards after the catch as well. But
MVP awards in sports that are so highly based on your team's success.
Yeah.
And one aspect, success being based off another. The quarterback play isn't going to be that great if he's running for his life every play. Therefore, you need a strong offensive line. You need a scheme and play calling from your offense coordinator that will facilitate him to be able to get all these numbers instead of just maybe feeding a running back a ball constantly. You have to have pass protection versus run protection, run blocking.
Right.
All these things are different when it comes to the way offensive plays are run. So I'm almost just even thinking about this, which is the reason receivers don't win this award, is because they need to have someone throw them the ball.
Of course.
In a good place, at the right time, consistently. So the quarterback play has facilitated Brown's ability to do this. this almost should be eliminated as like an MVP award for the season. Like Super Bowl MVP, sure, because someone had a great game and all around whatever. Yeah, but over the season, a quarterback versus a receiver versus a running back versus a tight end, because tight ends are release valves and they are maybe the most valuable player for an offense to be successful. There's lots of reasons behind it. Shit, maybe your guard is that athletic that he can do enough that he moves the ball for you. It's impossible to really say one guy is the most valuable player on a successful offense.
To play devil's advocate, you do understand that quarterback is the hardest position. Like the offensive line is tough. Cornerback, corner, not quarter, corner is the hardest defensively because you are pretty much hamstrung by the new rules in the NFL.
Right.
So it's almost impossible to make any contact whatsoever.
You're kind of on
anymore.
an island a lot of times. It's a solo aspect of a team sport.
But to play devil's advocate, I think Antonio Brown should win. But quarterback is the most difficult position to play, arguably in all of sports. You could say pitcher and catcher are there for baseball. But if you try to just focus in and hone in on the NFL, the quarterback has to change the plays. He has to make the reads. He has to buy more time for his receivers who might not be as good. And obviously this is different from Antonio Brown. Let's use like the Cleveland Browns, for example. Like you need to buy more time, or you could even say the Seattle Seahawks, because Russell Wilson has to buy more time for his receivers to get a little more.
You control the pace of the game. You control what's happening.
Everything. So with that being said, why should it not be a quarterback-driven award? Again, playing devil's advocate.
Well, if it is, just call it.
It is. Look at the
it is,
list
but like
of winners.
officially, it's called the MVP rather than the most valuable quarterback or the best quarterback award. You know, which it probably is. I'm not even sure, but so in that aspect, just as long as the prestige for the quarterback award is as high as the prestige is for the MVP, sure. I'm not going to dispute that the quarterback position is that hard to play, because obviously it is. Everyone wants that general on the field to help facilitate everything they're trying to do. That's tough. But if there's going to be a quarterback, the best quarterback award, be like, and the highly sought after quarterback award.
Right.
That's all.
Right. I agree. So here's why I will now pinpoint why I believe Antonio Brown should win, okay? Juju Smith-Schuster was suspended. I know it's for a game, but it was still an important game. And that's when Antonio Brown had over 200 receiving yards against the Baltimore Ravens. Secondly, Le'Veon Bell, you know how many 100-yard games he has this year? 3. He's supposed to be and he is, but he's supposed to be a top-tier running back who could potentially lead the NFL in rushing yards, 3 100-yard games.
And behind what you're saying with that, just in case people who aren't big football people, your running back having success on the ground will open up the passing game for your receivers. And number 2, as far as Schuster being out that game, usually when there's another good receiver out there, they have to split their attention. If there's just one they have to focus on, it's even harder for them to get the ball.
And their defense, I know that it's, again, a small game of a one-game sample size, but Ryan Shazier is now out for the rest of the season, which means Antonio Brown, granted the defense has to do more. They didn't perform greatly against a Baltimore Ravens offense. Antonio Brown then took over that game by blowing past cornerbacks, by finding a way when it seems like there's no avenue at all to get inside the 20 on a long pass and catch. He does it. On top of that, not only with Le'Veon Bell, but his quarterback at the beginning of the season said, I don't know if I have it anymore.
And actually, and lastly, how big is Antonio Brown? His general size?
Dude, he's probably like 5'10".
I was gonna say at best 6 foot, but probably not even that.
No, he's not.
So that's the other thing. Big receivers also help with this, because if you just put the ball up without so much accuracy, they can go up and get it. Again, Calvin Johnson is that kind of guy.
Yes.
He's huge.
Yes, he's a Julio Jones physical specimen. He's like LeBron James in basketball. Like wide receivers aren't supposed to be built like that.
Right, so when you're not, it's even harder.
Yes, completely. And I also like that he was like a 6th or 5th round pick out of Central Michigan. Like even that much more kudos. Lastly, here's what Sam Quinn wrote. The case for Brown is obvious. He leads all NFL players in receptions by 11. He leads all NFL players in receiving yards by 276. That'll take like 4 games for anybody to get that. He's tied for 2nd in the NFL with 9 touchdowns. But first place, excuse me, DeAndre Hopkins is now likely down to his 3rd-string quarterback, nothing to play for. So Brown has a chance to win the receiving triple crown. Again, I agree completely. And one other thing that I just thought of, and then we're gonna be done. Martavis Bryant requested a trade. So your 2nd best pass catching weapon wanted out of the Steel City at the beginning of the season, didn't play for your team, and now he's come back. And there was a moment, either in Sunday Night Football or the week before, where I started noticing Martavis Bryant is quitting on routes. He stopped it. And Ben Roethlisberger was furious at him, furious. So now you have Jesse James, who is a pretty good tight end, but Ben Roethlisberger's making him. You have Antonio Brown, who is a speedster and a freak of fucking nature playing the wide receiver position, and your number 2 wide receiver doesn't want to be there and wants out, and that's why, I hate to say it, the Bears are probably going to pony up a ton in order to get him because they see something in somebody who doesn't want to be where he is, which is a Hall of Fame quarterback, a Hall of Fame wide receiver, a pretty good offensive line, and a defense that just lost its most important piece and still outlasted the opposing rival team, the Baltimore Ravens, who they have bad blood with for many, many years because of Antonio Brown.
If you don't give him that award, come talk to us.
Yeah, seriously. All right, thoughts, comment section below. Subscribe to TYT Sports. All righty. Oh, there, kids. I thought I could squeeze it.
Just taking notes.
All right, so the Oklahoma City Thunder are like really bad.
Like really bad or just bad because we assume they'd be a lot better? Like they're middle of the range
Great
team?
question. Great question. Well, let me ask you a question. They land Carmelo Anthony. They get Paul George. They turn a team that seemed destined for failure with just Russell Westbrook potentially going back-to-back MVPs, and the only reason you would ever watch them on League Pass is the brilliance and his I hate every rim and every arena play of Russell Westbrook. And then they acquire both of these guys. They find a way to land both of them. Your initial reaction was at least a 5 seed, right?
Well,
in the West?
I don't want anyone to go back and look at what our predictions and assumptions were about this team because
my one prediction is looking good. Giannis for MVP.
Oh yeah,
that was it.
I said something like, "Oh, this team's gonna be great." I said
OKC?
Like, yeah, I thought they're gonna be great because I'm stubbornly, and not even for any really good, big reason. I've always been a Carmelo guy.
I know why you were a Carmelo guy, though.
He got like unjustly treated in New York. I know he's an ISO guy who isn't very creative, but that's the way he plays.
All accurate.
And what I always thought was, hey, how about you try guarding him and see how much he sucks? That's all I always thought to say, right? Because the reason he's one of the great players is because that style of play, I think, is really tough. It's easy to pass the ball and then jab step and come back out and get an open 3. We know how that works. But to play ISO one-on-one, it's boring. But it's really tough. Anyway, that's my background for why.
I don't know if it's boring, actually.
Well,
it's
like
funny because your analysis is and we're gonna get to this in a second. Your analysis is the antithesis to what people feel about the San Antonio Spurs, which is, oh, they're so boring because they have ball movement and they screen a lot and they get easy buckets, and that you're calling isolation boring when it seems like most people, who are following the NBA and guys who partake in this becoming their profession, like playing heavy isolation.
The problem is, so are the Warriors as far as the style of play with the Spurs. Steve Kerr's from that coaching tree.
Yes.
So it's similar, but the thing is people enjoy watching the Warriors do it. They don't enjoy watching the Spurs do it because it's the same mentality with sports fans. We're set in our ways. We're like, oh man, the Spurs are boring. You know why? Because of Tim Duncan. And because David Robinson.
Because the big fundamental.
The big fundamental.
Yeah,
it was no flashy, sexy name. It wasn't dunks ever, but he did dunk. He did have exciting plays, but we were conditioned to believe they're a boring team. So therefore, no matter what they do that's exciting, it's still boring. Tony Parker's extremely entertaining.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Ginobili
is amazing still.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So we've been conditioned to believe that they're boring. Anyway. But so people go, the ball sticks. Carmelo doesn't move the ball. Anyway, so back to the Thunder. It's just not working right now.
Let me show you this. So offensive rating for 3 players. Again, these are heavy statistics, but I think it supports how disappointing they've been. Here are the top 20 for offensive rating in the National Basketball Association, okay? Now, I know, surprising that Wade and LeBron are there because everyone's like, Wade is so old. It actually has a lot to do with the Kyle Korver effect. Curry, Durant, and Draymond, that actually points to how much more valuable they are. Now, granted, Klay Thompson is just under them, but if anybody wants to hate on Klay Thompson, they point to that. So as you're going down this list, I'll give you a second. Like, what's most surprising? OG Anunoby, Indiana Hoosier. With DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry, I think it shows how valuable he's been. Marcus Smart, surprisingly, it shows how valuable he's been because he's just trying to get in between everybody, be physical, and set the tone for those two as well. So, look, I didn't want to count, okay? But go to the next one. I don't think they're in the top 45.
That's what I'm saying. Now,
and I highlighted them. They're in the middle.
With the level of numbers on this chart, and people just taking a glance. The point is these combinations, the most points scored of these combinations is at the top.
Right.
Just look for the blue line and the blue column. And look for OKC, and you didn't see it on the first page. That's the point.
No, but you didn't. No.
For their best lineup.
You didn't see that 3 combination.
Yeah,
you may have seen a different combination.
I don't think I saw anything with OKC, but maybe.
No.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back. Let's check. Let's check. Let's go back one more time.
Maybe I was glancing too quickly.
I don't think I saw the slide before. I don't think I saw any in the top
no OKC
20.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Nope.
Nothing. Because obviously their best scoring lineup should be these 3.
So, yeah, exactly. Oh, he zoomed in. Thank you. No, none of them. Nothing. So it shows how disappointing they have been. Oh my God, Ja'Cory. This fucking guy is so good at his yab. So it goes to show how disappointing they have been that when you think of Carmelo Anthony, right? Paul George, Russell Westbrook. Oh, Sam Presti pulls Magic out of his ass in the offseason. Gets Carmelo on a 1-year deal, Paul George on a 1-year deal. Potentially they make the playoffs, they go to the Western Conference Finals. Magic can happen even that much more. Yet you saw they're not even in, again, to my recollection, not even the top 40.
But Ricky, how about defense? They don't have to score tons of points, they're stopping other teams.
The only thing they're good at is defense. Here's their field goal percentage and how bad it is. They are 29th. 29th overall in field goal percentage at 43.6. Moving forward, their 3-point percentage, also horrible, 33.9. That ranks them 28th. But here's where they get good. Their defensive rating, a lot of it having to do with Paul George playing defense, and most importantly, Steven Adams pinning down whenever Carmelo Anthony decides not to play a high pick and roll and just help out that much more. How about opponent points, second chance points for what? Come on, English isn't that difficult. Opposing teams. They're 9th in the NBA. This isn't bad. Their defense isn't bad. Their offense is atrocious. Why? Help me with the understanding these numbers. Why is their offense horrible?
Again, so these are the second thing that's gonna be flying in my face of being wrong, and I don't like being wrong. One of them being the Carmelo effect and the way it may work in OKC, because I feel like he was inspired a little bit to play with a couple superstars.
Yeah.
A new big 3, and it's not working out so far offensively. The other part of this being,
it has a lot to do with Carmelo.
It does.
Like
well,
that's what it is. If you watch any of the games, he is killing their offensive mojo, killing.
But this is
and he's not hitting. That's the other thing. If he were to hit, half is tough because like then you're a Hall of Famer in like one season. But if he's even hitting 15% more of his shots that he's taking, 10%, 8%, it would help them that much more. He's old. Like what I'm saying, he's old. He has no elevation. He's not embracing contact anymore. Not that he really ever did. He would yell in order to get the foul when he was in New York and Denver. Denver, he was more physical. He was also bulkier and younger. But what I'm seeing right now, there's no elevation in his shot whatsoever. He's not really attacking, and he's just not scoring. If he scored, then they would be in a better position,
the system
but they're
needs
not.
to change. So that's what I'm saying. I thought they'd
so you're
be
blaming
able
Billy
to,
Donovan.
I thought they'd be able. Now I don't know what's going on in the locker room. I don't know what the mentalities are, who's butting heads, or who wants this and isn't getting it.
Of
I have
course,
no
we
idea.
won't know about that for years.
It's hard for this to really come together if everyone doesn't buy in to whatever the system is. Maybe the system sucks and they shouldn't buy into it. But the system last year was give the ball to Russell, let him try to kill the rim, and then when he can't kill the rim, kick out and find other people that can maybe score. Many of them couldn't. So this should have been the same approach, except Paul George and Carmelo needs to kind of take a back seat and go, will be those guys that are release valves. So take this, they made the playoffs with nobody last year. And I don't mean to demean, I hate when people say things like that. Nobody last year except for the MVP on their team. Now they have two guys who can score, they're scorers, and they should be able to be release valves. But I don't know if now either it was asked for or Donovan thinks it needs to be this way. They need to be dual primary options.
So here's what I'm looking at.
Or a trio of primary options.
Off of NBA.com, here are the 3-point percentages for guys who shoot threes. Andre Robertson, you literally leave him alone, and I like Andre Robertson a lot. He just needs to improve his 3-point shooting. It's evident, it's as clear as day. He is at, I just lost my page. He is at 22%. Jeremy Grant, who's actually turning into an okay player, 26%. Russell Westbrook, 31%. Raymond Felton, 33%. This is me rounding up. Carmelo, 34%. Patrick Patterson, who's usually better, 35%. Alex Abrinas doesn't really play that much, but 36%. Paul George is the only okay one, and he's at 41% if I'm rounding up. Something that they did, and I understand why they did it, but now that they're looking back, they needed to keep a Doug McDermott. They needed to sign another 3-point shooter. There's no spacing on this team whatsoever.
Right.
Whenever Russell Westbrook is bringing up the basketball and the play is called for Carmelo, he passes to Melo and he stands 35 feet from the basket. And I'm telling you, if you're an NBA fan and you're not seeing this, you need to open your eyes. Because this team is not only, it reminds me of the Broncos. Like, not only are they incredibly disappointing, but it seems like at this point, it's still solvable. This is how I felt about the Broncos a few weeks ago. It's still solvable. It's just frustrating to see a team like this not fulfill their potential when we all know how good of a team this is and how good they are individually.
It makes them easy to defend. So again, you got to use the youth explosion that is Russell Westbrook, and then the old man of Carmelo to sit out there. He can spot up and shoot those. Everybody knows he can shoot 3-pointers. Sit back and camp out, Carmelo. You don't have to do too much.
Right.
Just hang out. It's okay.
Do they make the playoffs this year?
I was trying to look at where they are in the standings right now. I've been searching for as I was trying to talk at the same time. But I was trying to see where they are and if they'll make it. It's not even All-Star break yet. That's in February. So it's hard to say if they will. Where are they?
Oklahoma City's at 9th. They're 12-14. The Jazz are 13-14.
Yeah, they will.
So there's still time.
There's many.
The Pelicans are in the playoffs.
They will. They'll do enough to get in.
If
they don't make the playoffs this year after making it last year with none of these guys,
those are the only two teams. I don't see the Trailblazers not getting in unless there's an injury.
Right.
The Nuggets are really good. Yeah. I don't see them not getting in. The only time that the Nuggets looked horrible is when Gary Harris had to go one-on-one against Victor Oladipo, who looks like an MVP.
I'm saying anybody who goes against Victor Oladipo right now looks horrendous.
Indiana Hoosier. All righty, thoughts, comment section, subscribe to TYT Sports. The Derek Jeter ownership-led group cannot have gotten off to a worse start, and I think the best way to summarize what has gone on in South Beach is pure fuckery. So Derek Jeter, via Andrew Marchand of ESPN, Jeter's handling of the Stanton situation was questioned. Two execs said the proper way to go about it would have been to find the team Stanton would go to and work from there. But the Marlins put together the parameters for deals to San Fran, St. Louis, while Stanton preferred the Dodgers and the Yankees. On top of that, making matters worse, Jeter seemed to suggest in a conference call that he offered to keep Stanton, but Stanton wanted out, forcing the Marlins to make a move. This comes after reports that Stanton and Jeter hadn't talked since Jeter took over the team in September. On top of that, he is not at the winter meetings. Here's what Bosteroli tweeted. The Marlins are executing major franchise-changing deals, including the swap of their best player. And the head of baseball ops, Derek Jeter, should be at the winter meetings to explain the moves. It's a responsibility that comes with the title. He is not here. Someone said, well, he doesn't owe you anything, so, you know.
Where was Derek Jeter last night?
It was at Monday Night Football. All right, so Colin tweeted at Buster, he doesn't owe you anything. I doubt it's in his contract. Go fuck yourself. And Buster's like, you completely missed the point. The winter meetings are not only about the media, it's the work of your organization. It's about working with your scouts, about players, the market. Every baseball ops person in high authority is here every year for a reason. And I agree with Buster Olney. And I think that this was a robbery.
You mean Colin Brewster wasn't right?
I'm sorry?
You mean Colin Brewster wasn't right?
I think Colin brought up a point that a lot of people are questioning, but I think it's also important for a guy who's the face of the franchise and leading a new ownership group and is trying to establish his name in South Beach to be there, to not only be like, hey, I am literally the face of this team now.
Because by the way, I'm okay with, I don't
views.
mean to talk trash about you, Colin, but because
Colin doesn't know who we are.
He's gonna find out today.
Right.
Because I'll be the first to assume a lot of sports media figures, reporters and everyone wants the story to be a lot of times a little bit about them. They like to control the narrative. Ben and I always disagree. I've said it 18 times. I think they like to insert their name and they want to be answered to more than they need to be.
Okay.
So I get Colin's wondering why Buster Olney is so upset about Derek Jeter not being there to talk to him. I hear you. But this time it's not about the media. This time this is your team. If you're lead ownership group for a team, and this is like a lot of people like me's dream. If I ever hit some kind of like idea and I become a multi-billionaire, I would be like, the dream job, the dream investment is a professional sports franchise, either basketball or baseball.
Completely.
So if now I get that chance and now I'm in, that's all I'm gonna be doing. I can't wait to go to the winter meetings. I can't wait to be there.
Of course.
And help make decisions or have insight of what's happening or see how this is working if I don't know how it all goes down.
But remember that when he was in New York, that's the last thing that he wanted. So it's already in his DNA for more than 20 plus years of being on the East Coast in the Bronx playing for the Yankees, that he doesn't want any media attention whatsoever. The problem is you are creating horrible attention for your franchise by trading your franchise player, Giancarlo Stanton, who, even though there was pressure from both sides on wanting to make a deal, you didn't have to do it right now, and you didn't have to get Starlin Castro and minor leaguers Jorge Guzman and Jose Devers, who could turn into good players. I don't think they're going to be anywhere of the same ilk as Giancarlo Stanton. Not only that, this was a robbery for South Beach. This was a robbery for the Marlins, because aside from the player, okay, you're also, Major League Baseball this is, entrusting Derek Jeter instead of Jorge Mas, who is apparently of Cuban descent, something that Major League Baseball didn't want to do. So what did they do? They kept dangling the keys and then moving it and moving it and moving it for Jorge, just so they could drive up the price so he wouldn't buy them. And then they wanted to, it appears to me, through my own theory, they wanted to give the franchise to Derek Jeter. You know what you don't do if you're Derek Jeter? You don't fire the TV team. You don't fire Jack McKeon. You don't fire Mr. Marlin, literally his nickname, Jeff Conine. You don't fire a scout who's been there for a long time, who days prior had surgery to remove a cancerous tumor apparently in his colon, and he's finding out as he's in the hospital, oh shit, I just got fired by the Marlins, that's great. This is the last thing that you do. You don't fire also the team president, David Sampson, to go then fire the people who you want to get rid of because you're too big of a pussy to do it yourself. Like, this could not have gotten off to a worse start for the Marlins. And apparently I just got an update on my phone as we're shooting this that they want to trade Marcell Ozuna. So what are you doing? Like, what's the point in everything that you're trying to do? Because this team, if they had some pitching, would have been in the playoffs, and then it's a complete roll of the dice for whatever would happen.
Okay, so now my turn for devil's advocate.
Okay.
Why can't he fire everyone that's in, if he's coming to take over? He wants a new
He's more
regime.
than a lot. Okay.
He wants it to feel different. He wants this kind of, maybe this kind of approach to getting players or trading players or negotiating and all that stuff. Maybe this whole system, he's like, this is a little different. I want it to be my way since it's now mostly and partially my team. Now, I agree with you, just to put it out there.
Can I answer your question?
Because I think the thing that was least out of his control was the way Stanton left. Now,
it wasn't the way.
I'm sorry. It was the way, not the fact that he did, because he wanted out. That's what he asked.
He wanted out, but you didn't have to trade him. You didn't have to trade him, especially to your team that you played for and where you were in Monument Park.
That's the fun part, because that's what people are saying.
Bullshit.
Because Derek Jeter, although retired, still working for the Yankees.
Yo, completely. Of course he is. Of course. Words of Uger.
But to answer the devil question, why? Why can't he do all that? Why can't he do everything his way?
Okay, so
fire everyone.
Here's my papers. All right, so here's my point. To answer your question, here's why. He's allowed to do whatever he wants. I don't understand, if you are part of a new ownership group, why you would fire everything that was right there to making the playoffs. You were so close. Now, if you wanted to trade Giancarlo Stanton, you don't trade him for Starlin Castro, who is like if I were to give him a baseball rating out of 10, I would give him like a 7.1. Like, he's a good player. He's not great. He's not, earth-shattering with his talent. And then you also don't get some like okay, could be, but probably won't be great prospects. When you trade a guy like Stanton, who, by the way, won the MVP, you try to get good value and also build up a farm system that is atrocious. Like when the Cubs went forth with their complete overhaul, Theo Epstein made it very clear this is a 5-year project, and they won the World Series. And they were very close 2 times, because they've made the NLCS 3 straight years, to literally getting there. They were close. They were so close. So as I'm looking at this, if you're Derek Jeter, you're giving away the MVP to go to your former team. Already it seems like that's a conflict of interest, but whatever. Like, Major League Baseball signed up for this. And you're trying to overtake an ownership group previously with Jeffrey Loria that was atrocious. The one thing you want to do is get prize prospects so you have a future. You just mortgage your future with a guy in Starlin Castro who's probably like 31 years old at this point, and 2 maybe okay prospects.
But what about the money? Maybe there's money they save. We all know Giancarlo's contract.
Considering that Bryce Harper is set to get $400 million, I'm okay with 230 or 270 for a guy who's going to hit 65 home runs.
But you give up your MVP, maybe you get 3.
You gotta hit home
that
on
money
these
on
prospects, man, and he didn't do it. And that's what's so disappointing. That's what's so disappointing about this. They were close, man. They were close. And Jeter just screwed him.
The Marlins have a history of getting rid of a bunch of players.
They do. They do. But not in this way, and especially from a front office perspective. So look, if they win a World Series in 5 years and he makes the right moves, I will jump on this medium and do this show in a giant diaper that I was wrong. But I'm willing to wager that it will not happen and they will not win the World Series in 5 years.
Because of that imagery, I really hope that they don't.
They will not.
Just because of what you'd have to do.
I gotta start doing my push-ups. Subscribe to TYT Sports. The Mamba's pissed. I mean, like really pissed at ESPN. So he said this to Spectrum that was then outlined by Complex, as in Lonzo. He needs to get better now. Kuzma, better now. Randall. It's like players, you want that now. We never thought we were gonna win 4 years from now. We really thought, this is our year. We're gonna get this done. We're gonna push, get better now. So then what, excuse me. And then he went on. And in the process of having that kind of impatience, you develop, right? If you're just patiently going about it, you'll never get there. So it's kind of for players, it's kind of a patience, impatience. So then ESPN ran with this. He needs to get better now. If you're just patiently going about it, you'll never get there. Wait, hang on.
ESPN continue with, and he sucks.
Totally. Then they were like, and Kobe wants to shit on his grave. So Kobe was, to no surprise, pissed. And Spectrum threw a little shade by saying, here's a little more context from at Kobe Bryant's interview. And he put clapping emoji.
They
with
ran
the Homer
35
Simpson.
seconds of the actual video,
right,
which had the full context.
Correct, which we can't show because Spectrum would be mad. So then he started retweeting people with Teddy saying, I'm starting to think you were right on about ESPN. They're getting desperate for clicks, willing to cut and paste quotes by Kobe Bryant to draw interest. Good grief. No wonder to stop watching anything on their stations except live sports. And then one other guy tweeted, ESPN got the clicks but loses the trust. Is it worth it? Kobe, nope. And then he retweeted, hang on, one more. He retweeted Adam Hargraves, who had the entire transcript of the interview. So my point being, Kobe is not happy with ESPN for taking him out of context.
But you know, this thing, and even in being so angry, Kobe still went about it in a quiet, angry way. Like, he let other people say it, and then he just co-signed or
in a
had a
Mamba way.
one-word response. Yeah, it's very much his personality.
Yes,
if there was no such thing as the blue check on Twitter, and people are like, is this the real Kobe Bryant? Looking at the responses, the way he went about it, you'd be like, this is totally his personality, the way he would go about it.
Yes.
If you need the confirmation, if you need the confirmation, this is the way he would go about it.
It wasn't like him going on Twitter and being like, hey, this is Mamba, fuck ESPN. Like, and just going on Twitter and posting a video.
This is not a burner account. So yeah.
Burner account.
So he went about it just the way you would think. Was probably very upset about it, but then, and I think this is a smart approach for Kobe. I've never been a Kobe fan, but I like him more in retirement. He's actually near the end of his career too. Last 2-3 years and retirement.
Why? Because he chucked up like 45 shots a game.
And it's just you know,
no fucks
you respect
given.
the legends like this, right?
All right.
And so he you don't want to be the guy. I think he at least thought it through. Sometimes people get so angry, especially athletes, ex-retired athletes now. They want to still get the right approach to what they've said and what they've done and don't want their name tainted. And it's hard to not just respond immediately and go, you know what, this is fucked up. No, I didn't say that, and just start lashing out because it'll make you look worse. I think he thought about how to make him look to respond a certain way.
So Kobe's right is what you're saying.
Do it. He's right, and his approach I think was right.
Alrighty, thoughts, comment section below. Subscribe to TYT Sports. Kofefe.
Are you afraid of flying? The thing is, yeah, right? You know why? Because LeBron James is not.
Best intro ever.
I know it. LeBron James apparently had a bit of a run-in, a potential death experience on an airplane, which also, in the meantime, he also has a plan for not dying. I don't know if you guys remember this part, but he's talked about a plan to not die in case of an airplane crash.
Right.
That is to stuff his pants and his t-shirt with pillows and anything he can find as the plane is going down. At the last second, do a 007 out of the airplane and roll and stand up and put his hands up.
Right.
That's some side note. But in reality, Drew Gooden has relayed a story to Dan Le Batard about a time when LeBron James really felt he was going to die, along with several teammates, ownership group with the Cavaliers.
Back in June of 2017.
That's when he was just telling the story, yeah.
Yes.
Just this summer he was telling that story with Dan Le Batard. We do have that?
Yes.
Let's see what Drew Gooden had to say.
LeBron once told us he could survive a plane crash. And we, so we're on the plane talking, turbulence is going on. He's like, nah, I honestly think I could survive this plane. If the plane goes down, I think I could survive the plane crash. And I was like, yo, what you mean? Like, what are you gonna do? You gonna jump out? He said, yes, that's exactly what I'm gonna do. But before I jump out, he started taking all the pillows and the covers out of the overheads, and he started stuffing them in his shirt and in his suit and all in his neck. And he said he was gonna stuff himself with the suit, with the pillows and the blankets, and then jump out of the plane and survive.
So there being the story of how LeBron would survive the plane crash. And after hearing about that, I was like, well, there was another time that he talked about actually almost dying. He was actually on it's
Channing Frye, Richard Jefferson podcast.
Their podcast, which actually is really fun. And I'd heard about it before, but I hadn't listened closely. He told them, he comes on somewhat frequently, and he told them the story of when he was actually gonna die. This is back, he's telling a story from, this is just yesterday, but the story is from 2005 when the new ownership group came in for the Cavaliers. Let's listen to his story about it.
I had always complained about our team playing. It was old, it was run down, and I'm not even a guy who's afraid of flights. I had one scare, first time I ever flew, and then after that I've been good. But I always felt like something could actually happen to this plane. We take the plane from Cleveland, our family, from Cleveland, I was in the All-Star game, myself and Z and our families and everybody. And we go to Detroit to pick up the ownership, because that's where they're based at.
Oh, Detroit.
So we go to Detroit, pick up everybody in Detroit, and we're now taking the plane from Detroit to Houston. When I tell you, every single body on the plane from Detroit to Houston thought they were going to die. I mean, literally. Our owner's wife was pregnant at the time.
Oh, no.
She threw up multiple times.
Oh, no.
A couple of my family members, DJ Montage, threw up. Our stewardess broke her ankle.
No.
Broke her ankle. We looked into the kitchen at one point in the flight, and there was smoke coming out of the kitchen.
Jesus.
The lights were flickering on and off. I said to myself,
what's on the plane? What's on the way?
I was like, oh my God.
No, nobody knows that.
No one wants to listen to me. I believe this is it. Obviously, I'm still here to talk about it. Nothing happened. But the following year, we had a new plane.
So just early this year, I think it was the OKC plane. Something hit the nose of a plane. Athletes fly all the time, and you never really hear stories about times when they potentially could have gone down. It's lots of flying. It's a travel-related profession. So to hear this story and thinking maybe one of the best players of all time potentially could have died on an airplane because of the rickety plane that the Cavaliers team owned and refused to change until the ownership group had a near-death experience is a little disappointing.
All right, so first off, Bart is the audio engineer. You should cut out when Richard Jefferson says, oh, Detroit. That was funny.
That is fun.
Like whenever Uger does anything on the main show and talks about Detroit or something, you could just slide it in like, oh, Detroit. Secondly, LeBron's story is fun, but it's like, I thought he was like overemphasizing parts, like, oh man, and she broke her ankle, and there was like this, it was actually like just a twist, but like actually the coffee pot was, not the coffee pot was smoking, the plane was smoking, and then there were people like having sex in the bathroom.
So you think it was over embellished?
I think it was over embellished, but I still think the funnier part is Drew Gooden saying that he put pillows in his jacket for a safe landing.
I mean, I think
just
the
have some
story can be corroborated. We should ask.
breaking news. If you put pillows in your jacket and you fall from the sky, it's probably not going to be good. So don't try it.
But if you wait to the last second, maybe it can be.
Prove it.
Yeah, the burden of proof is on you. You're the one making claims that it won't help you survive.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, prove it, Rick. Come on. Man
LeBron
up.
James is alive.
He is alive.
He survived.
Because of microphone pillows. All right, I think we're done here. If you did not see our previous clip of how T-Mac was almost traded for Scottie Pippen, check it out on the channel. Here's another one. Stephen Curry was almost a Phoenix Sun. Yeah, seriously. So J.R. Jackson is right here on TYT Sports. So Steve Kerr spoke to Tim Kawakami, formerly of the Mercury News, now with The Athletic. And Tim Kawakami asked him, were you guys close to a trade with the Warriors for Curry? And this is when Steve Kerr was also GM of the Phoenix Suns. And he was now in media. As you see in the bottom right, this was from 2014. It was close. There was not a deal done, but it was tricky because of Amari's physical situation. Because he had bad knees, any deal that we were going to make would have been subject to a physical, but we were very far down the road. And then, continuing on, Kawakami asked him, when you took Earl Clark over Drew Holiday at 14, was that partly because you thought you had Curry, didn't want to draft 2 more point guards? We like Holiday a lot. We still had Steve Nash. We had Goran Dragic, who we loved. We had a potential deal involving Curry. We didn't know what was going to happen. And then they went on as well, which is really interesting on why they would take Earl Clark over Drew Holiday. So continuing on with what Steve Kerr would eventually say, how long were you talking with the Warriors about this proposal? It was probably a week or two. Every team, every GM has moments like that. I should have done this, should have done that. In the end, as Jerry West once told me, if you can bat better than 500 in the NBA, you're going to do a really good job. 1 out of 2, right? Then you're actually doing pretty well. I believe that we have the NBA draft as well from that year. Thank you. So Stephen Curry was drafted 7th overall to the Golden State Warriors. The Phoenix Suns ended up at 14. Drafting Earl Clark out of the University of Louisville, who honestly I also thought was going to be good. There are a few notables in there, obviously Drew Holiday, Jeff Teague, Ty Lawson, but we're not going to get off track. So, thank you. So, look, the Minnesota Timberwolves, go back to that for 1 second. Minnesota Timberwolves screwed themselves. Do you remember who they took? Ricky Rubio and Johnny Flynn. Oh!
They had back-to-back picks.
Could have had DeMar DeRozan as well. I mean, golly. So, what a white guy thing to say. So Stephen Curry there at number 7. He could have potentially been a Phoenix Sun. And on top of that, I remember seeing that they traded Tom Gugliotta for like a 2nd-round pick, and then they for a 1st-round pick, and then they moved that 1st-round pick to the Jazz, and that number 10 pick in that respective draft, which I think was the next year, could have been Gordon Hayward. Yeah. So they could have had Steph Curry and Gordon Hayward. So as you're seeing this, obviously with Amari Stoudemire's injury history, it's tough. But this was a deal that appeared to be almost on the table, and Stephen Curry could have been.
Which it seems like, as he mentioned, would have been even more likely to happen if it wasn't for the injury situation. Like, of course, the physical would have gone across all those stuff. But again, no one knew what Steph was going to be yet, right? And again, it has to be developed in the right system. So then again,
what did you think out of college?
For Steph?
Nah? You didn't think he'd be this?
I mean, definitely not
this
MVP
level, but like
and multiple championships at this point, no. Actually, who would have thought that at all?
But did you think he'd be more of like a Korver?
I mean, even he's too small for even that, more like a JJ Redick. You know, right? Because a guy that can facilitate those shots here and there, and then you can come off of screens and all that stuff, but definitely not. I mean, Definitely not the kind of ball handling, which of course he had ball handling skills, but then not to this degree where you just give him the ball, he can break you down, he can get the lane and do generally just about anything he wants.
But like, where would the Phoenix Suns be if they did draft him? Obviously, they don't have the front office, they don't have the scouts, they don't have the team that would nurture Stephen Curry to be what he is, along with a great team. But you still got to think like they would allow him to just do what he wants because Steve Nash at that point was getting a little bit older. He wasn't there yet, but he was getting a little bit older. Goran Dragic, I don't know how well he would play off of him. Dragic is more of like an elbow guy of shooting jumpers. Stephen Curry is just Jimmer Fredette college, but in the NBA. Would they have enabled him to become that player that he is now?
I don't know, because he had to be surrounded with the kind of players he's with now, with the defense they play. And again, the style, we talked about it in a different clip, the style of offense you play when you can move the ball and everyone can do what they can do. Look, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, Iguodala, all this stuff that wouldn't have been around him there, he'd have been fine. It's not like he'd have been out of the league or anything, obviously. But definitely not near the success.
But if you're Phoenix, you're just like, fuck.
Yeah. Because then you can look back and be like, what could we surround him with that would have allowed him to still be Steph Curry and we be something else?
100%. And they probably would have at least tried to get back to when they played against the Bulls in the finals. That was like a Dan Marley, Charles Barkley team.
94, 93,
was Kevin Johnson
93.
on that team as well?
Had to be 93, right?
Well, that's what they were trying to get back to. And they could have had it if they traded Amari Stoudemire and drafted the incredible Stephen Curry. Alrighty, let us know your thoughts. Comment section. Subscribe to TYT Sports. Goodbye.